Okay, everybody, welcome to the third and final installment of our three-part series on child support. The first was the kind of the basics of child support. Everyone should know. The second was focused on things that custodial parents need to know. And this session is focused on key points for non-custodial parents. So let's go to the next slide. We're going to start with some definitions. Custodial parent and non-custodial parent. We call them the CP and the NCP. The custodial parent is the one who has custody of the child the majority of the time, and to whom child support is paid by the non-custodial parent who has some other, who does not have the child the majority of the time, may have regular visitation. Those things vary considerably. It's also possible that the custodial parent might be a grandparent or a foster care situation rather than either the biological mother or father of the child. There could be two NCPs in that case. CP and NCP, current support. Current support is child support that an NCP is required to pay regularly pursuant to a child support order. And any child support order includes that there's an amount, an obligation amount to be paid. Let's say it's $100 and a frequency every 2 weeks, bi-weekly. So current support is that which is expected to be paid regularly. When child support goes unpaid, that creates debt, and we refer to that as arrears. I also want to define DSS, that's the Department of Social Services, which is the parent agency of OCSS, the Office of Child Support Services. And lastly, cash assistance, CA. Cash assistance is support, also known as public assistance. Many years ago, it was referred to as welfare. And cash assistance is significant in the child support process because during any period when the child or children on the case are receiving benefits, then for that period of time, the NCP's obligation is payable to the Department of Social Services rather than to the custodial parent, the CP. The benefits, those benefits could include cash assistance, medical insurance, Medicaid, or supplemental nutrition, SNAP benefits, would all cause the obligation to be payable to DSS rather than directly to the custodial parent. The custodial parent in that case is receiving a budget from FIA, the agency, the part of DSS that handles cash assistance. And it is mandatory that custodial parents who are receiving cash assistance cooperate with child support. Next slide. So we're going to talk about the life cycle of the case. And an important thing to realize is we have a long time relationship with our clients, both custodial parents and non-custodial parents. If a case is started when a child is 3 years old, that child probably won't emancipate under New York state law and child support laws until the child turns 21. So that means it's going to be 18 years of us working together. We're going to talk about how a case is opened. We're going to talk about establishing parentage. We're going to talk about how orders are established. We're going to talk about collecting and distributing support, and also enforcing or modifying an order, all of which are part of the life cycle of the child support case. Next slide. So cases get started one of two ways. Custodial parents that are receiving cash assistance, as I mentioned, are automatically referred to OCSS. If they don't show up, they will be sanctioned and they will lose a portion of their budget. It's mandatory that they cooperate. custodial parents not receiving cash assistance can contact customer services, and we will work with that custodial parent. It may be because there was a divorce, and for a while the NCP was living up to the support terms in the divorce agreement, but now the NCP is stopped. In that case, a custodial parent could come to child support to open a case. Either way it gets started, the circumstances are that the OCSS caseworker and the custodial parent discuss and complete a child support application, and a case is started. Next slide. Now, the process from the non-custodial parent's point of view is that when the custodial parent comes in, the custodial parent will be asked to identify the non-custodial parent. And that may be very simple because the couple was married. It may be a little more difficult depending on how long the relationship between the custodial parent and non-custodial parent took place. But before a case is heard, the NCP must legally receive a summons. So we have to locate the NCP. And particularly in this day and age, we have a lot of tools at our disposal that makes it relatively easy to locate NCPs through search engines, private databases like LexisNexis, social media. So once we locate the NCP receives a summons, and there's a hearing in family court. That hearing could be just for support if parentage, which we used to call paternity, has already been established, or it may be a hearing for support and parentage. What if the NCP doesn't appear? As you see in the bottom of the screen in the center, if the NCP doesn't appear, then the sheriff will serve the summons, and that will stress to the NCP that it's essential that they do come to family court. By the way, family court has multiple sections. Child support cases are heard before someone called a support magistrate. They don't deal with issues of custody. They don't deal with issues of child neglect or foster care, any of that. It is just about child support. Custody is handled in another part of family court. For child support, both parents can attend without a lawyer. You do not need a lawyer to attend a family court child support hearing. And we'll talk a little bit about legal assistance you might benefit from a little later. So if the NCP doesn't show up or doesn't bring all the necessary documents, there may be a return for another visit in family court. Ultimately, there will be a child support order issued. And it's important to note that child support does not start the day the child is born. It does not start the day that the order is issued. Child support is due from the time the petition for child support is filed by the custodial parent in family court. Once the order is in place, child support will be deducted from the paycheck of the NCP if the NCP is employed, or if the NCP is a gig worker or has some other arrangement, then the NCP will pay the child support directly. Next slide. I can't stress how important it is. I can't stress enough how important it is for NCPs to participate. Participating provides protections from day one. If the NCP participates, the child support order will be aligned with the NCP's income. And there are really two principal ways that works out. If the NCP has a low income, you see those initials on more initials in the middle of the screen. If the NCP's income is below the federal poverty level, the FPL, or below the New York State self-support reserve, there are protections in place for the NCP, and it'll be a low dollar amount order. Above the self-support reserve, then it will be a percentage of the NCP's income, starting for one child at 17% of adjusted gross income, going up to 25% for 2 children, 29% for 3 children, 5 or more children, at least 35%. And ideally, the NCP pays on time and in full, leading to better outcomes for everybody, for the children. And if debt starts to accumulate, we know that's stressful for the NCP. It's also stressful for the custodial parent and for the children. So it's very important that NCPs participate from the start. Next slide. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are protections for low-income NCPs. And if you look on the bottom right of your screen in small type, you'll see the current federal poverty level for a single person is $13,590, a little more than $1,000 a month of income. The New York State Self-Support Reserve, because New York State recognizes that it's more expensive to live in New York State than a lot of other states. The self-support reserve is $18,347. These amounts are adjusted every year. So these are the 2022 figures that came out in February or March. So if the NCP is earning at or below the FPL, then we will issue what's known as a poverty order, which can be $25 per month or less. And we can cap arrears that are owed to the Department of Social Services at $500. If the NCP is earning at or below the self-support reserve, then the order will be capped at $50 a month. And as I said earlier, earning above the New York State Self-Support Reserve, the support is a fixed percentage of income. And that's true up until around $160,000, $165,000. For high income individuals, the support magistrates have more leeway to set the child support, but anywhere between 18,000 and change to 165,000, it will be that fixed percentage pursuant to the New York State Child Support Standards Act. Now, you have heard enough of my voice for the time being, so I'm going to turn the presentation over to Allison for a bit.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Okay, so Chuck's been talking about all these protections that we do have for low-income NCPs, and how, just to stress how important it is that you do participate from the beginning in the process. So let's talk about where issues typically arise. So we typically find that issues begin because, one, the NCP fails to appear at their court hearing. And so when this happens, oftentimes a default order is issued. And a default order in most circumstances is a lot higher than what an NCP can pay, because it really isn't based off of documentation that the NCP can provide, showing that this is their circumstances and this is what they earn. So another reason that an issue may arise is if the NCP does not notify or return to court when they experience a change in their circumstance. So it's really important just to stress that it's in your best interest, the NCP's best interest, to continually engage with the process. The child support obligation should reflect the NCP's circumstances. So one important way that you can do that is over the life of a child support case, you can always go in and you can modify an order. And by modifying these orders, well, you do that really when your circumstances change. So let's have a look at modifying orders. Now, either party can file a petition to modify an order upward or downward when circumstances change. So some circumstances include a new job or a raise when you're earning more money, and that reflects your ability to pay a little bit more. or a job loss or decreased income, and that reflects your inability to pay as much as it's currently on the order. Another example of a change in circumstance would be incarceration. So it's important to note that child support does not stop just because one of the parents is incarcerated. So it is really important to make sure that you do get that modified. And then the last one is last example. There are a couple others, but is sudden disability. Now that can be permanent, or it could just be a temporary disability. So we've seen examples of NCPs who have, gotten injured on the job and had a very temporary disability, and they immediately got their child support order modified to reflect their change in income for that temporary period. So if at any point during the life of a child support case, an NCP fails to meet the monthly support obligation, enforcement actions begin. So there are really two types of enforcement actions. We have administrative and judicial. Administrative actions start automatically when certain conditions are met. So for example, perhaps maybe payments don't happen for a certain number of months, or when debt accrues for a certain dollar amount. That would be some examples of when an administrative action might begin automatically. Now it's important to note that when administrative actions are taken, NCPs are notified by mail before any final action is taken, and they can always challenge the accuracy of this information. And so the second one is judicial. And when these administrative actions are unsuccessful and court is really the only alternative, judicial action may be initiated. So some examples of a judicial action might be a court-appointed employment program, or a violation petition could be filed against the NCP. But again, we really want to stress here that judicial actions are not the first thing that happens to an NCP when they're getting behind on their payments. It's really the most extreme cases. So again, just remember that enforcement actions, they do begin automatically. So again, the best thing to do if this happens is respond to the notification that you receive in the mail and contact OCSS customer services. We'll really try our best to work with you. So some of the ways that we try our hardest to work with you is we do offer these, great debt reduction programs. We recognize and understand that debt in general really has a negative impact on one's mental and physical health, and it causes quite a bit of stress for families. So we've got these programs that are designed to help NCPs reduce their child support debt. So we're going to talk a little bit about their two types of debt. So the first one is money that's owed to DSS. Now, if at any point during the life cycle of the child support case, the CP is receiving cash assistance benefits, and any kind of debt is accrued during that time, then that money will be owed to DSS. So we have a few examples listed here of programs that we run pretty regularly that will help you reduce this debt that is owed to DSS. Now, we're just going to cover this very, very briefly, but at the end of this presentation, we do have a link to a 2-page handout that it takes you directly to the OCSS website. And this 2-page handout goes into far more detail about these debt reduction programs. Okay, so the second type of debt is money that's owed to the CP. So let's say that the CP is never was on cash assistance. Then in that case, any unpaid child support is really just owed directly to the CP. And OCSS can't really do anything to reduce this. Really, that's just up to the CP. So what we do offer is we have partnerships with numerous mediation services and nonprofits throughout the city. And so again, we have those all listed on the OCSS website. And if you contact customer services, that we can put you in touch, they can put you in touch with those resources. Okay, so other ways that we can help you if you reach out to us is we do offer employment programs to NCPs who owe child support. So this is available to all NCPs who have a child support case. These programs provide an opportunity for parents to train for jobs, obtain employment, and establish a steady earning so they can better support themselves and their children. So again, we have actually many employment programs and partnerships, but we've just listed a few of them you may have heard of. So one of them is STEP, and this is just partnering with HRA's cash assistance employment vendors. We also have Families Forward demonstration, and that provides training and job placement. We have Text to Work. So this is an example of information that's sent about job openings to job seekers' cell phones. And there are many different job sectors that are represented here. And then another example would be the Parent Support Program. And this is an example of a court approach which connects NCPs to employment. Okay, so either way, if you already have a child support case or you're in the process of establishing a child support case, we're here to help. So we always encourage you to contact OCSS customer services with any question or anything that you need help with. You'll see that we offer numerous services. If you have general questions, specific questions, we're here to help. We can also help you apply for child support. We can also give you information about payments or obligations. We can help give you information and help you with modifying an order, as well as perhaps something simple as changing your address. Customer services can also talk to you about enforcement measures, and then they can also provide you with information about administrative enforcement relief from those measures. We also can give you information and talk to you more about applying for debt reduction programs or our employment programs. And then we also can give you our different office locations, as well as give you some information about acknowledging parentage. And that's to just name a few of the things. We do offer a lot more. So as promised, here's this link at the end of this presentation. These are important resources. So we've got all clickable links here, well, mostly clickable links here, and these will take you directly to our website, our OCSS website, where you'll find information about, let's say, for example, videos. We have a playlist on YouTube where we give you important information about child support. And there's also some very short how-to videos. So if you want to get started, you can click this one called How to Request a Phone Appointment with OCSS. And that will help you set up an appointment with customer services. Some other important resources: managing your child support. This is that 2-page informational brochure I was telling you about on our website that details all the debt reduction programs as well as the employment programs that we offer. We also have the handbook for NCPs and CPs. We've got our customer services email address. If you want to just copy and paste this and directly email customer services, you can go ahead and do that. And then we also have the email address to the New York State Child Support Helpline. And then finally, we have a new feature. So we just recently released the New York State Child Support Access HRA mobile app. So if you currently have a child support case and you haven't downloaded the app today, we highly encourage you to do that. Oh, and before we go, we have one more important resource. Chuck, did you want to speak about this a little bit?
Sure. One thing that we are happy to steer people to is one of our partners called LIFT, which stands for Legal Information for Families Today. And you can reach out to them online at liftonline.org. Legal Information for Families Today has an office in each family court, and there's a family court in all 5 boroughs. So LIFT is designed to provide legal information. They do not provide lawyers to represent you in your child support case. You don't need a lawyer for your child support case, but they can explain to you the process. They have information about how to apply for a modification. A lot of times people find that circumstances in front of the support magistrate are sufficiently confusing that right after they get an order, they want to go to LIFT and get some help from Lyft, just explaining what's in the order and what does all this mean. So they're a very important resource. You can contact them online. You don't have to go into family court. They also have at their headquarters in Brooklyn a bunch of computer terminals that are available. So if a custodial parent or non-custodial parent needs computer access to be able to file for a modification, for example, Lyft can assist with that. So they're a great partner and we enjoy working with them.